Far away in the galaxy, many civilizations lived in peace under a powerful council. This council was made of hundreds of different species, each with their own worlds, their own cultures, and their own ways of life. They usually worked together, but when it came to Earth, their opinions were almost the same. They all agreed that humans were dangerous. For centuries, whispers about Earth had spread among alien travelers. Reports told of a world filled with storms so powerful they could tear apart cities, oceans that swallowed ships whole, mountains that erupted fire, and creatures so deadly that even the strongest alien soldiers would not survive them. What shocked the galaxy most was not the danger of the planet itself, but the fact that humans lived there comfortably. They did not just survive on such a harsh world. They thrived. To the aliens, this was proof that humans were reckless, unpredictable, and dangerous to the order of the galaxy. So the council called a great meeting. It was held in the largest hall of the galactic station, a shining structure floating between the stars. Hundreds of leaders gathered. Some came with their advisors, others with armies. The hall was filled with voices, each alien speaking in their own strange tones, some like music, some like thunder. There was only one question on the table. What should they do about Earth? The debate did not last long. Many of the species had already made up their minds. A representative with golden skin and long silver eyes stood and said, "Humans must not be allowed to rise. They are too wild. Their world has made them into something dangerous. If they are given freedom, they will threaten us all." Others nodded in agreement. Another, a creature covered in scales, hissed, "I have seen their strength. I have seen their battles. They fight like no other. If they are not enslaved now, one day they will enslave us." One by one, leaders rose and spoke. Some tried to argue that humans should be left alone, that perhaps they could be allies instead of enemies. But these voices were drowned out. The majority wanted control. The majority wanted Earth to be chained. Then came the vote. In the Great Council, every species had one voice, no matter how large or small. The chamber grew silent as the first votes were cast. One after another, the lights on the great wall of the council chamber turned red, signaling agreement with enslavement. Red after red after red. It was almost unanimous. Only a few blue lights appeared, showing those who voted for peace. But their lights were so few they almost vanished in the sea of red. In the end, the decision was final. Every major species had agreed, Earth must be enslaved. Humans must be forced into service before they became too strong. The council announced the result, and the sound of approval filled the hall. To them, the matter was simple. The galaxy was safe because humans would soon be under control. After the vote, plans were quickly made. Fleets would be gathered from many worlds. Armies of different species would fight side by side. They thought it would be easy. After all, Earth was only one planet. Its people were scattered and divided. Compared to the power of the galaxy, Earth looked small, weak, and unprepared. Some council members even laughed. They imagined how quickly humans would fall. They pictured them kneeling, broken and afraid, ready to work as servants for the higher races. To them, it was already decided. The invasion had not even begun. But in their minds, Earth was already conquered. What they did not realize was that they had made a great mistake. None of them had ever truly faced a human. None of them had ever walked on Earth's soil or felt its burning sun, freezing nights, or raging storms. They had only looked from a distance and judged by their own standards. They thought strength was in numbers and technology, but they did not understand the kind of strength that was born from struggle, from surviving a world that constantly tried to kill you. In their pride, they had chosen the path of conquest. In their arrogance, they believed the humans would fall like dry leaves in the wind. The fleets were prepared, weapons were sharpened, and soldiers were trained. The council celebrated, confident in their decision. But while the aliens planned their grand invasion, the people of Earth lived their ordinary lives, unaware that the galaxy had just voted to enslave them. Men and women went to work. Children played, Farmers planted their crops and leaders argued over the usual human problems. None of them knew that an entire galaxy was watching them with fear and envy, ready to strike. The stage was set. The galaxy had made its choice. They believed they were strong enough to crush Earth. But the truth was waiting for them. The humans, who had been judged as wild and dangerous, would soon show the galaxy something it had never seen before. And the very council that voted to enslave them would one day remember this moment with regret, for in trying to control Earth, they had awakened a power they did not understand. The day finally came when the fleets from the galaxy reached Earth. The sky above the planet darkened as ships larger than mountains appeared from the clouds. They stretched across the horizon, their shadows falling over cities, forests, and oceans. People looked up in shock. Some froze, unable to believe their eyes. Others ran into the streets, pointing to the enormous objects that filled the heavens. At first, many thought it was only a dream, or perhaps a trick. Humanity had long imagined visitors from the stars, but now those dreams had turned real, and they did not come in peace. The aliens had expected chaos. They imagined that humans would drop their weapons, cry out in fear, and beg for mercy. But that did not happen. Instead, something remarkable occurred. People from every nation, from every land, set aside their differences almost instantly. Rivalries that had lasted centuries seemed to fade when faced with a greater threat. Governments that had argued endlessly now spoke with a single voice. Humanity, for the first time in history, stood together. In secret bases and open streets, soldiers were called to prepare. Scientists rushed into laboratories to study anything that could be used against the strange invaders. Engineers worked, night and day, creating defenses from whatever materials they had. Farmers and workers supplied food and resources for the effort. Even ordinary citizens joined, building shelters, carrying supplies, and spreading information. It was as if the entire world had suddenly become one family, determined to protect their home. The aliens, watching from their ships, could not understand this. They had expected division. They had studied human history and thought they knew everything: wars, conflicts, greed. They assumed humans would fight each other instead of resisting. But what they saw was different. They saw unity. They saw determination in the eyes of billions. The first move came when smaller alien craft descended to Earth's surface. They chose cities where humans lived in great numbers, hoping to capture them quickly. Their weapons were advanced, their armor shining like steel under the sun. They marched through streets with confidence, their steps heavy and their voices cold. They expected no fight, but the humans were ready. Instead of surrendering, they answered with clever traps and swift attacks. The so-called primitive weapons of Earth, missiles, aircraft, explosives, and rifles, turned deadly in human hands. Guerrilla fighters used forests, mountains, and rivers as their allies. Snipers hid in ruined buildings. Engineers created devices that disrupted alien communications. Entire cities became fortresses. For the first time, the invaders felt fear. Alien commanders tried to assure their soldiers that victory was certain, that this resistance was nothing more than desperation. But they were wrong. Every battle seemed to make humans stronger. Every defeat turned into a lesson, every loss into a reason to fight harder. The aliens had never faced an enemy like this before. They were used to fighting species that broke easily, species that surrendered when overwhelmed. But humans were not like that. They refused to give in. Even when weapons failed, they fought with their bare hands, with rocks, with fire, with whatever they could find. The humans also had another ally, Earth itself. The invaders could not survive its storms, its earthquakes, its shifting weather. A desert would scorch them by day and freeze them by night. A jungle would swallow them whole with its heat, its insects, and its endless growth. In the oceans, waves rose higher than their machines, dragging them down. What humans called home, the aliens called hostile. From orbit, alien leaders watched, in frustration. Their fleets filled the sky, but still Earth refused to break. Instead of cries for mercy, they heard war cries. Instead of chains waiting to be worn, they saw humans building weapons from stolen alien parts. The first great clash in the skies above Earth shook even the most confident commanders. Human jets, far smaller and older than alien ships, struck with precision. They dodged beams of energy, attacked in swarms, and used the very clouds to hide. The alien vessels that were supposed to be unstoppable fell in flames, crashing into seas and deserts. Humanity cheered as the first enemy ships burned in the atmosphere. For the people of Earth, the fight was no longer just survival. It became something greater. It became a battle to prove that they belonged in the galaxy, not as slaves, but as equals. They wanted to show that no power, no matter how large, could take away their freedom. Mothers and fathers told their children not to be afraid, but instead to be proud. Teachers turned schools into safe havens. Doctors worked day and night, treating the wounded with whatever supplies they could find. The whole planet became part of the war. It was not just soldiers who fought, it was everyone. The aliens grew desperate. Their leaders had promised the Council an easy victory. They had promised quick control. Now, instead of celebration, there was confusion. How could one small planet resist so strongly? How could people with such limited technology strike fear into advanced armies? The answer was simple. They had underestimated humanity. They had looked at Earth's people as weak because they did not understand them. They did not see that strength is not always in weapons but in spirit. By the end of the first wave, many alien fleets had been forced to retreat into orbit. They had lost soldiers, ships, and supplies. The humans, though scarred and tired, stood tall. Cities were damaged, but the spirit of resistance burned brighter than ever. The invasion that was supposed to last only days had turned into a nightmare for the galaxy's armies. And as Earth looked to the skies filled with enemy ships, they did not tremble. They prepared. They adapted. They waited for the next wave, ready to show again and again that they would not kneel. The galaxy thought it had enslaved Earth with a single vote. Instead, it had awakened something far stronger. Humanity was not afraid. Humanity was ready. The war grew harsher with every passing day. The alien commanders had believed the first battles were only small setbacks. They thought their soldiers would soon crush the resistance and claim Earth. But instead, their fleets began to break. What was meant to be a quick conquest was turning into something no one had expected, a war of survival. The first great battles had left cities in ruins. Towers collapsed, fires raged, and entire neighborhoods were reduced to ashes. Yet even in destruction, humans did not stop fighting. Families who had lost their homes moved underground, turning caves, tunnels, and subway lines into shelters. From there, they supported fighters above. Where aliens saw ruins, humans saw cover. Broken buildings became sniper nests. Collapsed, streets became traps, and rivers of rubble slowed the invaders down. The aliens were powerful, but they were not prepared for Earth itself. Storms rolled across continents, striking down both sides. Thunder and lightning, which humans had long learned to endure, terrified alien troops. In deserts, the heat drained their strength during the day, and the freezing cold almost ended them at night. In jungles, they marched only to find themselves surrounded by endless green walls, poisonous plants, and insects that even their armor could not fully stop. In mountains, the thin air made them weak, while humans climbed like it was nothing. One alien officer recorded in his logs, "This planet is not a world. It is a weapon. Every stone, every storm, every living creature fights against us, and yet the humans walk through it as if it is nothing. They are the true children of this place, and we do not belong here." These words spread among alien soldiers, planting seeds of fear. They began whispering to each other that Earth was cursed, a death world unfit for life. But for humans, this was home, and every hardship only made them stronger. The battles were fierce. In one ruined city, a group of alien machines marched proudly, their cannons blazing. They crushed buildings and scattered rubble. The soldiers inside believed victory was theirs, but hidden in the shadows, humans waited. Small squads of fighters struck from above, dropping explosives onto the machine's weak points. Others used stolen alien weapons against them, turning their own technology back on them. Within hours, the mighty machines burned, and the aliens fled, leaving behind only smoke. Another story spread of a coastal town where aliens landed, expecting to capture it within minutes. But fishermen and villagers armed themselves with simple weapons, refusing to surrender. They fought from their boats, from rooftops, from narrow streets. Even when outnumbered, they held the enemy long enough for reinforcements to arrive. That little town became a symbol of resistance, proof that even ordinary people could stand against a galactic army. Each defeat shook the aliens more deeply. Their fleets, once proud and unstoppable, began to lose confidence. Commanders argued with each other. Some wanted to retreat and regroup. Others demanded they press forward no matter the cost. Their unity, so strong at the council, was breaking. Apart on Earth's soil, the humans, on the other hand, grew closer with each victory. Nations that had once distrusted each other now shared supplies and strategies. Languages that had divided people for centuries no longer mattered. What mattered was survival. What mattered was freedom. And with every alien ship that fell, the people of Earth believed more strongly that they could win. But the war was not without pain. Thousands of humans lost their lives in battles. Cities that once shone with light were covered in ash. Families were separated, children cried in the dark, and smoke rose above lands that had once been peaceful. Yet in every face there was determination. No one spoke of surrender. Even in tears, they promised to keep fighting. The aliens grew desperate. They brought in heavier weapons, stronger ships, and larger armies. They thought that sheer power would finally crush human spirit. Instead, they discovered that power without understanding is useless. Their weapons were mighty, but they could not match human creativity. A single human with a clever idea could destroy a machine worth millions. A small team working together could bring down a ship that had crossed galaxies. The longer the war continued, the more the aliens realized something terrifying. This was no ordinary species. Humans adapted faster than any enemy they had ever faced. Every defeat taught them new tricks. Every captured piece of alien technology became a tool for humanity's survival. What had started as primitive weapons grew stronger every day. In hidden labs, scientists studied alien engines and weapons. They found weaknesses. They copied designs. And sometimes they even improved them. Within months, humans were using weapons the aliens had never imagined in their hands. It was as if the invasion had given Earth the very tools it needed to rise. Stories of bravery began to spread across the planet and even into space. A small squad that destroyed an enemy base, deep in the mountains. A group of farmers who tricked an alien patrol into an ambush. A pilot who led a fleet of old jets against a massive alien warship and brought it down at the cost of his life. These stories inspired millions, turning fear into fire. From the alien side, the situation grew hopeless. They had never lost so many ships in such a short time. They had never seen their soldiers refuse orders out of fear. The commanders who had once laughed at Earth now sent messages to the council, begging for more reinforcements, more weapons, more hope. But the council could give them none. What had seemed an easy conquest was draining their armies and their pride. Earth was supposed to fall quickly. Instead, it was breaking the galaxy's strongest fleets apart. By the end of the third wave of battles, the truth was clear. The invasion was failing. The great fleets that had once filled the skies were now scattered, broken, and hunted. Humans walked among the wreckage of fallen alien ships, studying them, using them, and smiling with the knowledge that they had survived what no one thought possible. The galaxy had believed Earth would be weak. But Earth had shown its true face. It was not a world to be enslaved. It was a death world, and its children were warriors born from fire, storm, and struggle. And the war was only beginning. The war had reached a turning point. The aliens who once believed Earth would fall in days now struggled to hold their positions. Their fleets, once proud and endless, were shrinking under constant attack. Their soldiers, who had marched with confidence, now looked over their shoulders, with fear. And humanity, though scarred and weary, was not only surviving, it was beginning to fight back with greater strength than ever before. Everywhere on Earth, people learned to use what they had. In deserts, fighters struck from the dunes, appearing like shadows and vanishing into the sand. In forests, resistance groups built secret camps, hidden beneath trees and rivers. In frozen lands, soldiers dressed in white coats moved silently across the snow, striking before the enemy even realized they were there. Earth itself had become the greatest weapon, and humans knew how to wield it. But it was not just terrain that gave humans the advantage. It was their ability to adapt. Captured alien weapons, once strange and frightening, became tools in human hands. Scientists worked day and night to study the devices, breaking them apart, learning their secrets, and rebuilding them into something new. What had once been technology too advanced to understand quickly became familiar. Within months, human forces were using weapons that combined alien power with human creativity. Alien commanders were stunned. They had never faced a species that could steal their technology and improve it in such a short time. Ships that had once ruled the skies now found themselves challenged by human-built hybrids, part Earth design and part alien machine. The battlefield shifted. No longer was Earth simply defending. Now it was striking back. The courage of ordinary people played a huge role. Farmers, teachers, workers, and students all became part of the fight. A farmer who had once driven a tractor now drove a captured alien transport. A teacher who had explained history to children now planned strategies to outsmart alien patrols. A group of students once studying science in classrooms now worked in underground labs, creating energy shields and communication devices. Every hand, no matter how small, contributed to the struggle. Alien soldiers began to surrender. At first, it was only a few, small groups who were too afraid to continue. But soon entire units gave up, laying down their weapons and begging to be spared. Many of them whispered the same thing. They had never seen such determination, such fire, in any species before. They admitted openly that they feared humans more than their own commanders. The galaxy's council grew worried. The leaders who had once voted so proudly for Earth's enslavement now argued in panic. Some wanted to send even larger fleets, but others feared wasting more lives and resources. Whispers of failure spread among them. No one wanted to admit it, but everyone knew. The invasion was collapsing. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity pressed forward. Instead of waiting for the enemy to attack, they began launching their own missions. Small teams of fighters moved into space, boarding alien ships, disabling them from the inside, and capturing supplies. Resistance fighters sabotaged enemy bases on Earth, cutting off their food, water, and power. Wherever the invaders tried to stand, humans found a way to break them. One of the greatest victories came when a massive alien battleship, the pride of their fleet, was destroyed by a group of human pilots flying old jets. They had studied the ship's weaknesses. They knew its blind spots, and they struck with perfect timing. The enormous vessel, which had been meant to terrify Earth into surrender, fell in flames into the ocean. The sound of its destruction echoed across the world, filling every heart with hope. Humanity had shown that no enemy was too strong to defeat. The unity of Earth became its greatest strength. Nations that had once competed with each other now shared everything: food, weapons, knowledge, and soldiers. Boundaries no longer mattered. A pilot from one country might fly alongside a soldier from another, fighting for the same cause. Humanity had become a single force, bound together by the simple desire to live free. For the aliens, it was the opposite. Their unity crumbled. Different species blamed each other for the failure. Some accused their allies of cowardice, others of incompetence. Arguments broke out among commanders. Fleets that were supposed to work together split apart, each one trying to protect itself. What had once been a powerful coalition was now falling into pieces. The humans saw this weakness and used it. They targeted fleets that were isolated, striking them before reinforcements could arrive. They used misinformation, spreading false signals to confuse the enemy. They learned to predict alien tactics, turning traps against those who set them. Each battle was another lesson, and with every lesson, humanity grew stronger. For the people of Earth, the war was no longer just about defense. It was about sending a message to the galaxy. They wanted every species to know that humans were not to be enslaved, not to be broken, They wanted to show that strength was not measured in ships or weapons, but in willpower, and in this they were unmatched. The turning tide brought new hope. Where once there had been fear, now there was pride. Where once there had been doubt, now there was confidence. Families rebuilt homes even in the middle of battlefields. Children, though growing up in war, learned stories of courage instead of despair. Songs of resistance spread through the airwaves, filling hearts with determination. Alien leaders watched in horror. They had expected Earth to beg for mercy. Instead, it was they who began to fear mercy would not be shown to them. Reports of failed invasions piled up. Supplies ran low, soldiers deserted. Ships that had traveled across galaxies turned back in shame. And still, humanity pressed forward. By the time the fourth wave of battles ended, the galaxy could no longer deny the truth. Earth was not a weak, fragile world waiting to be controlled. It was a world of storms and fire, a world that had forged warriors from ordinary people, a world that had turned invasion into opportunity. The invaders had not broken Earth. Earth had broken them. The council that had once celebrated the vote to enslave humans now sat in silence, their grand chamber filled with fear. They had made a mistake, and that mistake was growing larger every day. The very species they had tried to control was now rising as a power they could no longer ignore, and for humanity the fight was no longer just for survival. It was for honor. It was for freedom. It was for every life that had been lost. The tide had turned, and now the galaxy would have to face what it had created. The world that was once seen as weak was now stronger than any of them. And the Council would soon learn what it meant to challenge Earth. The alien fleets that had once filled the skies were now scattered. Many had been destroyed, some had fled, and others surrendered. The very species that had voted unanimously to enslave Earth now found themselves in shock. What they had expected to be a simple victory had turned into disaster. They had underestimated humans, and now they were paying the price. In the council chambers far from Earth, the leaders argued endlessly. Some suggested launching another invasion, stronger and more ruthless than before. Others, however, realized the truth. They could not control a species that had already outsmarted them, defeated their armies, and used their own technology against them. Fear had replaced confidence. Humility replaced pride. And soon, desperate messages began to arrive from every corner of the galaxy, begging humanity for mercy. On Earth, the people were not blind to the change. They had seen the enemy falter, had witnessed the retreat, and had studied the alien messages carefully. Humanity had been fighting for survival, but now the war had shifted. It was no longer just about defending homes and families. It was about deciding the fate of the galaxy. They had earned the power to negotiate, and they would do so on their own terms. The alien envoys arrived, traveling through space to Earth, seeking peace. They came not with weapons ready to strike, but with gestures of submission and words of apology. The species that had once laughed at Earth now bowed, acknowledging the human strength. They admitted that they had been wrong, that they had underestimated what a world like Earth could produce. And they asked humbly for forgiveness, promising not to interfere again. Human leaders, while cautious, recognized the opportunity. They could have sought revenge, they could have destroyed the fleets completely, but instead they chose restraint. They made it clear that Earth would not be conquered, that no species would ever enslave them, and that the galaxy must respect their freedom. In exchange, they offered a chance for cooperation, trade, and mutual respect, if the aliens agreed to follow the rules. This was not weakness, it was wisdom. Humanity had proven itself in battle, and now it proved itself in judgment. By showing mercy, they demonstrated the true power of a species that had survived storms, fire, war, and fear. The galaxy, which had once thought humans reckless and dangerous, now understood that they were also honorable and capable of leadership. Across the globe, people celebrated, but they did not forget the cost. Cities that had been destroyed were slowly rebuilt. Families who had been separated reunited. Schools, hospitals, and homes were repaired. Humanity had won not just by strength but by unity and perseverance. Ordinary people who had contributed to the fight, soldiers, scientists, teachers, farmers, and children, were honored. The story of their courage would be told for generations. The Q, alien leaders, meanwhile, returned to their homeworlds humbled. They carried tales of defeat and warnings to others who might consider threatening Earth. They had learned a lesson that no vote or council could teach. Strength is not always measured by fleets or weapons, but by spirit, resilience, and unity. A single planet, once seen as small and weak, had challenged the galaxy and emerged victorious. Earth itself changed. Humanity had survived the greatest threat it had ever faced, and in doing so, it became stronger, wiser, and more united. The planet's people no longer feared the unknown. They welcomed it with caution, respect, and confidence. They had learned that they could face anything as long as they stood together.